What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Hart, and today I'll be breaking down this 12-game NBA slate here on DraftKings for Monday night. I'll probably be uploading this Monday morning, so obviously the news could change. But yeah, I'll be talking through my favorite plays, going over some core plays, value plays, as well as an early look potential build for this breakdown. So make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And let's get right into it. Just a quick little recap of my lineup so far. Right now, making 15 bucks, nothing too crazy there. Hopefully, we'll double up here in the single entry. My core plays posted on my Patreon today were LaMelo Ball, which he started off terrible there. I think he had 2 points at halftime, and obviously went off there in the second half. He went off for 71 there. I'm surprised he was only 29% owned here in my single entry. I was assuming he would have came in at like closer to 40% with his very cheap price tag of 8,500. But yeah, he smashed. Luke Kennard was one of the core plays. Or excuse me, it was LaMelo Ball, Shannon Sharp, who should go for 40 plus here. Um, Gordon Hayward, who was great there, 39. And then the last one was Darius Garland, who right now is in the optimal lineup. So four great core plays once again. And then just very annoying that DeAndre Ayton's having a terrible game here. Super frustrating stuff there. Of course, he goes for 340 bombs in a row, and the one night I play him, having his worst game of the season. But anyways, should be able to make a few bucks. Hopefully, double up my money 2 nights. Core plays looking to continue that streak into the slate here for Monday night. But as we know, as we can see, it's a 12 game slate, super big slate here. I'll have my core plays, my updated core plays on my Patreon link down below, about 30 minutes before lock tomorrow night. So the Spurs Pacers here, a great game environment. Victor priced about right. I mean, we know the upside there with Victor is massive. He one of these games he's going to go for like a triple double with blocks. So yeah, I think he's a solid play there. Offense will run through. It was running through Vassell and Keldon Johnson. Now that Vassell is questionable, most likely going to be missing this game here. Missed the game today. If he misses again, then they did start Branham off the bench there. Played about 25 minutes. I think he'd be a solid value play there at 4,100. His minutes wouldn't be the safest, but still, I think he'd see around 20 plus minutes and he'd be a solid value. I think Trey Jones would be more viable. I'm surprising they're not starting him. So maybe he gets dropped into the starting lineup here. As we saw, he still played 32 minutes there off the bench. So I would have some interest there in Trey Jones. But if Vassell's back, it's really just the three at the top for me and Zach Collins here, who has great upside if he can stay out of foul trouble, as you can see from that last game. So right now, I do think my favorite play would probably be Zach Collins there, and that's really it. It really just depends on if Vassell's in or out. On the Pacers side, once again, Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, I talked about it. I said, one of these, he has the ability to go for 30 and 15. Well, he went for 43 and 12 there that last game, 70 bomb. I mean, his price didn't move at all either. So really like him here as like a nice, cheaper end spin up play. The upside is just massive with him. Turner's fine, and then in terms of the wings, I don't have much interest in these wings. It just seems like one of them has a good game and the rest kind of do nothing. I will mention Naismith, probably my favorite of the wings, but they're all very up and down. I just don't see the need to go to any of them. And then, maybe going to Jalen Smith here if you're looking for a cheaper value and you kind of land in this 4K range. He's been decently productive and pretty aggressive there off the bench. Moving on to Washington and Philly here. Love this matchup here for the Philadelphia side, but obviously there's a lot of blowout risk here. Kuzma Poole priced about right. If this game's going to stay close, it's going to be most likely because of those two doing well. So I don't mind him as like contrarian plays there. Denny is questionable. If he's out, then they are pretty thin in the the wing and shooting guard area. If he does miss, so we could possibly get some value with guys potentially moving Bilal into the starting lineup, or Gallinari maybe sneaks in there. Maybe they get weird and go with like Shamit. So definitely keep an eye out on that there with the Denny news. Gafford is questionable. Should hopefully be good to go. If not, we could get Muscala. And then obviously Kispert is questionable. If he's back, I think he'd be an okay value play. Nothing too crazy there. But yeah, not a ton I like right now on the Washington side, just with that blowout. Unless those injury news, that stuff happens, we can go to some value. On the, Philadelphia side, absolutely love Embiid as a spin up there, 11-2. It's just, can this game stay close? Hopefully it does, because he should be absolutely able to just destroy Washington. So he'll be a very popular play. But yeah, I love the upside there with him going against Washington. Maxi's price still hasn't moved. I mean, he's had an insane upside. So really, really like both of them there. Pies is fine mid-range play. Same thing with Kelly Oubre. Melvin does have some upside. Just really hasn't flashed it yet, but I will mention him. And that's really it. They do have Covington. He came in and played 18 minutes. I guess he's okay value. Batum is back as well. They'll probably both see around 15-ish minutes. Nothing too crazy there, but if you want to go to value, they are definitely there. For Dallas here, coming off a back-to-back. Everyone should play. Everyone should be good to go. Luka's fine if you want to pay up to him if you like the value. Kyrie just more of a very contrarian mid-range, low end pay up option. Hardaway Jr. is always going to be aggressive off the bench. Don't love the price tag, but he is fine. Lively, I think he might be the most intriguing to me. He went off for a double double tonight against Charlotte. One of those things. If you can stay out of foul trouble, he does have that double double upside. So he's solid. Grant Williams does feel a little bit too cheap, even though he's not very aggressive offensively. He can still have very solid games, and 4,900 for a guy who should see 30 plus minutes. I think it's a solid play there, and that's really it. Kleber, if he's back, that's just a downgrade to Powell. Um, yeah, nothing too crazy there for Dallas. Orlando, Wendell's still out. Fultz is questionable. Obviously, with Fultz being out, the last game they started Anthony Black there, who played 30 minutes. One of those guys who's not going to be super aggressive offensively, but he's one of those guys that can get the rebounds, get the assists, can score a little bit, get a couple steals. So once again, if Fultz is out and they start Black, I really, really like him there at 4,300. If Fultz is back, then really it's kind of a slight downgrade to Paulo and Franz, who've really stepped up the past two games there with no Fultz. It's kind of been like the main, offensive playmakers, as you can see with Paulo, 250 bombs in a row there. So I do have a good amount of interest in them once again if there is no Fultz, but if Fultz is back, I think they're all kind of fine, mid-range plays, contrarian plays. Cole Anthony would probably be the most interesting to me, along with Suggs, who both have some upside there. And that's really it. Obviously, if, Goga starts again, 4,700, I think it'd be a fine play there. Minutes aren't a guarantee, but he was pretty productive last game. So I will mention him. And they do dust off some Joe Ingles and Isaac, but nothing too crazy there. Golden State and Detroit, great game environment here for Golden State. Obviously, there's blowout risk. Steph, great spin of play if you want to get to him. Clay, we know the GPP upside with him. It just can't hit his shots. Chris Paul, with a full healthy team, he's just not super aggressive, so I just don't like going to him at that price tag. I think Draymond Green, once again, is my favorite play here. I think he went off for 38 fancy points tonight. I do think his minutes limit has gone to 30, maybe 31. So once again, I think Draymond's probably my favorite play. Looney has upside, but he's there. Wiggins just is not getting the minutes. Then Kaminga, Sarge, and Payton and Moody are all fine off the bench. Did see some Trace Jackson Davis today. Pretty productive guy when he's out there, but it's hard to trust those minutes. So, yeah, I mean, everyone kind of seems priced about right for Golden State. On the Detroit side, it does feel like Cade is kind of cheap here at this price tag. Going to be the leader in terms of shooting the shots. I love Duran here, 6,800. I mean, kind of cooled off there after a great start of three straight 40 or more bombs. Obviously, 19, 19, 33. Got ejected here against Phoenix. He is very foul prone at times, as you can see, averaging three or more fouls per game, but one of those guys who has massive, massive upside. So I do really like him there at 6,800 in this matchup. Should be a ton of rebounds for him to go around. Asura Thompson, he's just been very productive, as you can see here. So I I kind of expect the same thing for him to shoot the ball a decent amount. He got 4 blocks and 4 steals that last game. That's crazy. But yeah, he's fantastic at defense, fantastic with peripheral stats. So he's a very solid play. Rest of the teams there, we could get some value here with Ivy questionable and Burks questionable as well. We saw Sasser have a huge game tonight. So he's one of those guys who's seen a good amount of minutes. He's been very aggressive. So I do have a good amount of interest in Sasser down here, especially if there's no Ivy and Burks. If one or both of them are back, it's a pretty big downgrade to Sasser. I do think you'd still see the minutes, but I wouldn't love him at that price tag, especially if he's very popular. If Burks and Ivy are back, because they are going to be the main guys over Sasser. Milwaukee and Brooklyn here. For Milwaukee, Giannis's price is slowly coming down a little bit there. Hasn't had a huge game yet, so I do like this matchup here for him. Pretty small and undersized Brooklyn team, so he should be able to feast. Dame looks fine there. Middleton's still on a minutes limit. It's all 21, so it's going up a little bit. So if you want to feel frisky, you can definitely go to him, but still around a 20-minute limit there for Middleton. Just not the best. Brook Lopez had an 8 block game there that last game. Has that upside. He shot it 15 times as well, which is kind of crazy to see, being the third option / fourth option on that team. But still, the upside there with him is crazy. Bobby Portis is there. I mean, he's a pretty productive guy off the bench. Don't mind laying on him. They're running Crowder, Connaughton out there. Nothing too crazy there in terms of value. It's really just kind of the main two at the top for me. Brooklyn side here, no Claxton once again. No Cam Johnson. Lonnie is questionable. Very, very small team here going against Milwaukee. So what to wait and see? Will they continue running this smaller lineup out of Bridges, Thomas, Simmons, Dinwiddie, and DFS, and then Royce O'Neal comes off the bench, mixed in with a little De'Aaron Sharp, or will they go, get a little bit more size and have De'Aaron Sharp get in there, starting at center, and move DFS to the bench? But however it goes, still have a lot of interest in this team here. Decently cheap price tags for all these guys here. I do like Bridges as a contrarian spin up play. I mean, his role is really not the same right now as it was last year, where it was pretty much his team. So he's not doing the best in terms of what we want for a guy who's almost 8K, but he's there. He will have some upside. Cam Thomas, a little bit too score independent for me, but he's fine if you land on him. I'd rather get to Simmons, Dinwiddie, DFS, or Royce O'Neal. Those guys all have my interest, and possibly De'Aaron Sharp if he does, start, or he could come off the bench, play a good amount of minutes just because they'll need his size and he's pretty productive there. So I do have some good interest in Brooklyn right now. Moving on to the Lakers here. Anthony Davis has been fantastic. As you guys can see here, the past few games, it was it 5 straight 60 bombs basically. So once again, I like him here, but going against a Bam who is a pretty solid defender, so maybe it's a little bit of a coming back down to earth game for Anthony Davis. LeBron's there, but yeah, I mean overall the Lakers are just very very depleted in terms of their bench. So once again, going to a lot of like here, going to a lot going to like a lot here from this Lakers side. Um, so D'Lo, I think is my favorite play. 6,600. Terrible shooting game there, but he saw 35 minutes. I think Reeves is pretty appealing here. Saw 34 minutes. Pretty productive guy there. Christian Wood, 5,200. He's seen about 30 minutes the past few games there. Torian Prince is back. Missed that game with the knee, so he's good to go. 4,200. He should see huge minutes as well. Cam Reddish would probably move back to the bench there. Don't have a lot of interest in him if Torian Prince is going to start over Reddish. Christie will get some minutes. 23. I guess he's a fine value to the flat minimum price tag, and that's really it. Yeah, I mean they're just very very depleted right now. So I like getting to at least one or two Lakers guys here. Probably Prince as the main one, and then deciding between Wood, Reeves, and Russell. On the Miami side here, pretty decent price tags for all three of the main stars. Jimmy's questionable, but he should probably be good to go here. So all kind of contrarian plays there. Tyler Hero definitely has the most upside and is probably the safest right now, just because of his shot attempts per game. But they're all kind of there. Just Josh Richardson's a fine value play off the bench here, 4,500. So I do have a good amount of interest in him. Kevin Love, solid value play. Hasn't been the best recently. Missed a game there, but yeah, he should be good to go for this game against the Lakers. Moving on to the Clippers here. More of a wait and see approach to kind of see what happens here. But yeah, they have uh, obviously James Harden is now going to play. Going to be on some sort of minutes limit, I think they said, until he kind of gets back into playing shape. But with him added to this team here, I don't have much interest besides a guy maybe like Kawhi Leonard, who's still going to be the main alpha and still has a ton of upside. I do think Paul George will be slightly less aggressive the first few games, and obviously Russell Westbrook kind of just gets cucked there with James Harden kind of taking over his role. So my really only interest would be Kawhi. If you're feeling super frisky, possibly get into Zubac because he does have huge upside there, but it's more boom or bust. It's a pretty big downgrade to Bones Highland there off the bench. Same thing with Norman Powell. Don't think I'd have any interest in any of these Clippers guys besides Kawhi. On the Knicks side here, I would say there's blowout risk just because of how bad the Knicks have been playing. It's pretty much been the Jalen Brunson show. Julius Randle has been god awful, cannot make a shot. Still has a very, very solid upside there with going 5 of 20. So I don't mind him as like a contrarian play there. Barrett's questionable. If he's out, once again, Josh Hart would probably start. He'd be a very solid play there, 5,300. I would have interest there and quickly off the bench, 5,700. And I still would like Grimes and DiVincenzo as kind of cheaper value options if there's no Barrett. If Barrett's back, really no interest in this team for me. Moving on to Utah and Chicago here. For the Utah side, I like Laurie. He's always a contrarian spin up option. I always keep saying that. Collins is a solid mid range play there. Been pretty consistent recently. Clarkson does, feel a little bit too cheap here. Once again, 6,000. He's very boomer bust. These guys can see 18 fantasy points that last game. Before that, pretty much 2 straight 40 bombs. So very up and down with Clarkson here, but he should be able to feast against the Bulls. The rest of the team, they're kind of priced about right. No real standouts to me. I mean, Walker Kessler, he should see solid minutes guarding Vooch. So I actually don't mind going to him there. We know he has massive upside. It's just, can he stay out of foul trouble? But that's really it. Don't really need to get to any of these guards here. I do have interest in Kelly Olynyk. I will say that. For the ball side here, they're all pretty cheap, price tags for these guys here. Levine, Vooch, DeRozan. One of these games, DeRozan's going to go off. Hasn't happened yet, so I think he'd probably be my favorite, even though he's the riskiest of the bunch. Kobe's coming in at pretty fine price tag there, 5,200. Don't mind going to him. Off the bench, we'll see Caruso, Williams, Drummond, Craig. Craig's a safe value. Should see a low to mid 20s minutes. I think he'd be my favorite play besides the three main stars for the Bulls. Atlanta and OKC here. For Atlanta, once again, Trey Young's kind of one of those guys who has not been able to hit a shot, but he still has great upside, especially with the double double upside there with the assist. So I like Trey Young. One of these games, he's actually going to hit his shots and go for like 35, 40 real life points. I wouldn't be surprised if it's here against OKC, even though Carson Wallace will probably start, or Cason Wallace, and is a pretty good defender. But yeah, I like Trey Young. Dejounte kind of seems priced about right for me. Capella, he seems fine, just still not seeing 30 minutes or more. And then the wings, as I always say, one of them is going to have a good game, maybe two. You never really know who it is. Johnson's the safest alongside Bogdanovich, and the other two are kind of a little bit riskier. And that's kind of my breakdown for them. It's fine if you land on them. I wouldn't go out of my way to play any one of them. More so if you kind of just land on them, it's kind of like a last player into your build. Moving on to OKC here. Obviously, no SGA once again. Giddy was god awful in that last game there with no SGA, only 27 fantasy points. He's way more productive there. I think he did foul out as well. So I don't mind going back to the well here with Giddy, 8,200. We know his upside is really, really solid with no SGA as we saw last year. Chet Holmgren, pretty solid there. If you can stay out of foul trouble, he has huge upside as you can see. So I don't mind him there at 7.7K. Jalen Williams is priced up, but still, I think he's really, really good upside here. Unfortunately, got in foul trouble that last game, but he should be able to go for 30, 35 plus here. So I have a good amount of interest in him. Lou Dort can have those random games there where he shoots the ball well. But yeah, no interest for me in him. I think Wallace is a fine play. Should play, mid 30s minutes. More of a defender, kind of a defender point guard, but he's there. Decent. Isaiah Joe, saw 26 minutes, a shooter. If he gets hot, he can definitely go off from the bench. Jalen Williams is back. He played 15 minutes. I guess he's a value play you could go to. And that's really it. Wiggins played 17 minutes. Not a lot standing out besides Chet, Jalen Williams, and Giddy for me on this OKC side. Boston, Minnesota should be a pretty solid game here. So I do have interest in this game. Tatum seems very cheap just for how much he's been doing for this team. And this game stays close. You should see close to 40 minutes. As you can see in close games, 39, 41, 41 minutes. So he's playing a ton of minutes. Been super efficient. Really, really like Jason Tatum here at 10-3 is one of my favorite spin ups on the board here. Porzingis, I think he looks like a fine play there, 7,900. Jaylen Brown, fine play there. And I do have a good amount of interest if there's no Derek White and Drew Holiday. Did get priced up there to 7K. So not like the best price tag, but still, I think he'd probably be my second favorite play there on the Boston side if there was no Derek White. Now, if there is Derek White, I think he'd be a fine kind of like a dart throw play at 5,900. Does have some upside there. Then Horford would move back to the bench, but he did get to start there with no Derek White, so keep an eye out on that because he could be a solid value play if he gets to start once again. And off the bench, they'll mix in a few guys, but nothing too crazy to look to. On the Minnesota side here, I do think it's still a pretty cheap price tag for Edwards and Towns. Do really like that price tag for Towns here. So yeah, it might be a Karl Towns tonight for me tomorrow. Gobert, Conley, fine. I do like Reed, a decent amount here off the bench. Very, very productive and aggressive. Kyle Anderson seems like a fine play as well. And that's really it. But yeah, I think right now I am going to throw Karl Towns into my lineup. Sacramento, Houston should be a great game environment here. Really like targeting this game. Should be two fast-paced teams. Sabonis looks great, 10-1. Fox is still out, so we'll still see Davion Mitchell starting. I do like getting to Keegan Murray. Two bad shooting games in a row, but it's one of those things. He's going to shoot the ball a ton and does have some good upside there. So I think he's a very, very solid play there, 6,500. I do really like Monk, 5,700. Minutes haven't been great there with no De'Aaron Fox, but still pretty productive. And if it's one of those things where he sees 30 minutes, he could absolutely take down the slate. So still have a ton of interest in him, even though the minutes haven't been the best with no Fox. Herter, just been very, very bad. But he should start if he can hit his shots. He will get his normal run, and that is way too cheap of a price tag for him. But the risk right now is just his shots. He's just not been able to hit a shot for the past year. I think Davian Mitchell's fine. I think there's better, guard plays based on the news out there, kind of what we get, and that's really it. Moving on to Houston here. Sengun priced up to 8K. I think that's a solid play. Fred VanVleet seems priced about right. Coming off two huge games there, so it's looking like he's going to be a little bit more aggressive. Um, yeah, I think he's a fine play. 7,500. Jalen Green, priced about right for me, too score independent. Jabari Smith coming off a solid game there. Shot the ball a little bit more than usual. He's been pretty solid. So I think he'd be my favorite play there alongside Fred VanVleet and probably tied with Sengun. Dylan Brooks has quietly been actually pretty solid the past two games, but I don't want to chase that. He's been way too efficient. And that's really it. Yeah, a little bit of interest here in Houston in terms of like Fred VanVleet, um, Jabari Smith, maybe a little bit of Sengun, but nothing too crazy. And then the last game here, the Pelicans versus Denver. CJ is out, so that's big news here. Let's see what they do with the starting lineup, whether it'll be Dyson Daniels they throw into the point guard role, or if it's Kira Lewis Jr. I would assume it's probably going to be Kira Lewis Jr. just because he is more so of a true point, and Dyson Daniels is more so of like that point forward, kind of like a Kyle Anderson. So it sucks because it's the last game, but I think I'd play it safe by just putting Dyson Daniels into your lineup just because he's a little bit more expensive. So obviously, if they rule in Kira Lewis, you can just pay down for him, and you don't have to like scramble to try to pay off. If you don't have enough salary left over, you don't have to try to scramble with other guys. Since it's the last game, you won't really be able to pivot much. So I'd say just go with Daniels for now. And if Daniels doesn't start, but he's still going to come off the bench and see like low to mid 20s minutes, and I still think it's a very solid price tag for him. Who's been, you know, he's not going to be aggressive offensively, but he's one of those guys who can do a little bit of everything, and he's a very very solid value. They're going to rely on him there. So, do you have a good amount of interest in these two guys here, Daniels, Kira Lewis? Let's just assume for now it's going to be Kira Lewis who gets to start, and then Zion and Brandon Ingram should take over here. So I do have a good amount of interest in these guys. J Val is there, Herb Jones is there, but I think right now going to load up on Ingram there, finally coming back after a few games off. Didn't do the best there against Atlanta. 6 to 10 was great, but only 31 fantasy points. But now without CJ, I expect him to step up, be more so point forward. So really, really like Ingram there at that price tag. And then for Denver, Jokic looks fine there, 11-6. Nothing too crazy for me there if you want to pay up for him. Murray is out, so once again, I'm assuming they'll start Reggie Jackson here at 5-5. I think he's a solid play, decent play here. Not like a must lock in play, but I think he's a really, really strong play at 5-5. Um, other guys are kind of there, nothing too crazy. We'll see some more minutes for Peyton Watson, Christian Brown. Maybe they throw in a little bit of Colin Gillespie. If you're feeling frisky, you can go to him, but nothing too crazy there. It'd be cool if they threw in Julian Strother, but I don't know if they'll go there yet. And yeah, that's kind of the breakdown. I'm gonna have a little bit more in depth core breakdown for my Patreon tomorrow. Don't know if I'll be able to do a full, write up, just with work and traveling, but I should be able to do at least a full in depth breakdown of my core plays for how I'm attacking this slate tomorrow on my Patreon. And to finish out this build here, obviously, kind of tough to fit all these guys in right now. So I think right now we'll just pay down off of gonna pay down off of Giddy there for right now, just because with that kind of the guard news there for the Pelicans in Denver. I'm gonna get to. I will leave it there for now. Let's see the center option here. Who do you want to get to for center? Do really like Duran there, but kind of need a little bit cheaper of a center play. So let's go down to these cheaper options down here. I think it's going to be Christian Wood there, 5,200. I think that's going to be the center option for me. Or it could be Goga, or it could be Horford, depending on how the starting lineups go. But we do have a good amount of options down here we can kind of get to. So I think right now, let's just go with Christian Wood there. Minutes should be really, really good once again for him there off the bench. 4,500 left over for the next two spots. Let's kind of see what we can get to. Obviously, there's news that kind of affects all this. Like if Burks is back, no minutes limit, I'd actually really like him there. Um, possibly DiVincenzo if there is no RJ Barrett, and then we probably want to get to Josh Hart. Torian Prince, that's been a throw in there. 4,300, another guy. Kind of the two main guys there for the Lakers in terms of value that I do like. And the 4,700 left over here. Let's see who we can get to. Goga, if he starts, I do like Kelly Olynyk. Naz Reid, don't mind him as a secondary scorer off the bench there for the Timberwolves. I think that's the route we're going to go there. Bogdan is, interesting to me. He's been pretty aggressive, hasn't been shooting the ball well. But yeah, maybe Bogdan. I think right now we'll just go with. Going to go with Naz Reid there for right now. So I do have some good, pieces I like here. So I think in terms of core plays, I say we have to wait for a bunch of the news and a lot of news is kind of in that last game there with the guards, but we kind of know with Denver who they're going to start, Reggie Jackson, and then for the Pelicans, it's probably going to be either Kira Lewis or Dyson Daniels, and both become really, really good plays. So yeah, in terms of like core plays, I'd say it's probably Kira Lewis, Brandon Ingram, Jason Tatum, and then probably Carl Towns for me as the core plays right now. So make sure to hit that like button. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.